You know, people have been saying, like, what bar have you been at lately? Who's letting you record out of their bar? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, the bar that you're recording all your reviews at lately. I'm like,
didn't you realize that it was your basement?
It's the basement, dude.
It's like, come on, guys, you gotta get with it here.
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whiskey in the Six. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whiskey Rant podcast.
So I'm a little crusty,
It's frustrating.
and it's gonna be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Two Luckiest Men in the World podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And so by the title, we have some of the oldest Scotch whiskey ever bottled in front of us right now.
The oldest Scotch whiskey ever bottled.
Let's rewind. How did we get this? Where did we get this from?
So, our boy James Bourne,
Yeah,
lovely gentleman.
very nice man.
Are we going like way back to like the beginning?
Yeah, I think
Like
we might
the
as well
creation
start.
story?
Yeah. Well, let's not go back to 1940 when this thing laid down, but let's talk about how we were invited to this tasting, which happened in Vancouver recently.
So, James needed a bottle of Glenlivet 10-year-old cask strength, the batch 5. It was stuck in shipments getting into Canada. He had a tasting coming up.
Mm-hmm.
He found out that I had a bottle. He asked me for it. I sent it to him. He was very grateful, sent me a gift. Thought everything was, like, you know,
Whiskey people helping whiskey people.
Right?
That's why the community's so good.
Yeah. I thought it was over there, you know, like, helped him out. He was very gracious, sent me back a gift. I was very gracious for the gift. Didn't think it was necessary, but very grateful. Fast forward like a month or a month and a half, and I get a message from James saying, I'm going to need another favor from you. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? And he's like, I'm going to need you to book a plane ticket to Vancouver because we're going to be trying the Gordon MacPhail 80-year-old Glenlivet. And basically, like, I almost dropped the phone in my hand, like, kitchen. My wife and kids were looking at me like, what's going on? Did somebody die? Like,
Yeah.
I was, like, shocked. Yeah, and, you know, and then he said that he'd be extending the invite to you as well. So I was like, basically, offer you can't refuse kind of thing. Fully comped trip to Vancouver.
Flights, hotel.
Yeah. And we get to try basically a once in a lifetime whiskey.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember when you were like, expect a call from James. I gave him your number.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, well, okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he calls me and tells me the story, what's gonna happen, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a punked or no, really, I was like, I'm like, is this like Make-A-Wish Foundation? Like, am I terminally ill? Like, you guys set this up, right? Rob called you. He's like, this is my buddy. Like, I got these results back from his family. He doesn't know yet, but we got to do something special for him. Just complete disbelief.
Yeah,
you know, he's
crazy.
like, come out to Vancouver. You know, we'll pay for your flight. We'll put you up. Come try this Gordon MacPhail Glenlivet 80-year-old that we have got some samples of, and we'll do a dinner. And it was just like, okay, sure. I mean, you don't have to pull my arm that hard. So yeah, booked the flights and we went off there like a week ago. Right?
Yeah, it was just over a week ago.
Yeah.
Actually, I just, basically, it's full week that I've been back in Toronto.
Right.
So
yeah, quick trip for you there and back.
yeah, pretty much up there the Friday, back the Sunday night, and then back to work. Actually, I was like really tired and sick, so I actually, not sick, but so tired that I felt like garbage, so I stayed home the next day. But
yeah, so if you follow us on Instagram or some of the other creators in the whiskey world, you've probably seen some pictures, so lots of documentation about this. But let's talk about like the tasting and like the dinner. So they take us to a restaurant called
Acquafarina.
Acquafarina. You have to say it because you're the Italian.
Acquafarina, it just basically means water and flour. So like the ingredients for pretty much 80% of Italian food.
Right.
Pasta, pizza, all that stuff.
Right. So like Michelin star equivalent Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
Gorgeous place.
Yeah, we should say that Canada doesn't actually have any Michelin stars, but there's something to do with the grading. They don't come to Canada for some reason, but they think that if we did have a few, this would be one of them.
Sure.
This one. So.
And definitely lived up to it. So beautiful spot. They take us upstairs to like the little mezzanine area, private dining area.
Yeah.
And, we see everyone else that's coming to this, different creators, Instagram influencers.
All cool people.
Great people.
Yeah.
And we got to meet, a whole bunch of awesome people in the whiskey world. And everyone was just, twiddling their fingers, ready to go. Like, it was the excitement and the buzz was just like out of control.
Yeah.
Right? We were so giddy. It was like kids at Christmas. It was insane.
Honestly. Like, I drew a picture for one of my friends, just basically said, like, imagine my son who's like full of energy on like Christmas Day. Like, that's essentially what I was. Like, I couldn't contain my excitement.
But the two of us, who are we really to be trying this whiskey? We're super fortunate, grateful, blessed, and honored to be a part of this thing.
Absolutely.
And, I think the cool thing about what James kind of wanted to do was like, let's invite some people in the whiskey world that would really, really appreciate this experience.
Yeah,
and that's
nailed it.
For sure we would. I mean, of course. This is blowing our minds.
I love the way James did it, because if you looked at like majority of the people that were there probably can't afford this bottle. Like,
no,
right? Like,
of course not. Yeah. Well, I can't.
And we all kind of ask that question to ourselves, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Kind of thing, right? Like, and that was what was cool about what James did, because he took guys that he knows respects whiskey, like they love whiskey. B, like guys that he developed some sort of relationship with, so he trusted that them being there would like it would be a good showing. It wouldn't be like a debauchery, or like guys would like just be getting wasted and like acting like clowns. So it was just really cool the way he set it up.
Yeah.
And honestly, little sidebar, we were pretty like tight-lipped about this until the day of.
We didn't really want to we didn't want to we wanted to make sure it was real.
Yeah.
We actually wanted to we wanted to get to Vancouver and actually be there before we really got into posting all over social that we're going to this thing.
It wasn't until the Saturday morning that I had the courage to actually post something. I'm like, okay, there's a good chance I'm not gonna die from now until the actual tasting.
Like jinx it.
So you know what? I'll post now because I feel like I'm gonna make it.
Yeah.
But like up until that point, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not jinxing myself. I barely told anybody. I didn't post anything on social media. I was very, very nervous about not being in that room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get arrested or something.
Right? You had to make sure it was for sure real. Okay, guess what, guys? I'm going to try this thing. So we get to the restaurant. They take our phones.
Yeah.
They take all of our
crazy.
phones. So we don't have our phones during this whole experience, which worked out for the best, in my opinion, for sure. You didn't want 15 guys with their phone out for every single cocktail, glass of wine, course that came out, and whiskey that we drank.
That's all we would really be doing, though, right? Like, we would just be trying to capture the moment, but
not living the moment.
Exactly. Like, whenever you're capturing the moment, you sacrifice actually, being in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? So,
so this was a policy that the restaurant had.
Yeah.
Not Gordon MacPhail or whatever, not the tasting. It was the restaurant's policy.
That's right.
But definitely, I thought it was the right call for us for this experience. So we get up there, immediately handed champagne.
Yeah.
There's table seating cards, so we all have assigned seats. So we take our seats, sit down, shoot the shit a bit.
Yeah.
The courses start coming out. The food is just unreal.
Bonkers.
Unreal. And we'll show a picture of the menu, because a preset menu with the tastings. They were paired with different wines. So we had champagne, we had a red, we had a white, we had a cocktail, a whiskey cocktail. What did it have in it?
Ben Romick.
Ben Romick 21 was the base for the cocktail.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah. Well, compared to the other whiskeys that we had that night, I guess that would be like a bar plate kind of whiskey.
Yeah, right.
for that kind of night, I guess.
And the scotch that we were drinking during this dinner,
unbelievable.
with some of their younger stuff, right? 30 and 40 years old.
Yeah, a 30-year-old Glenlivet, Gordon MacPhail, a 40-year-old Glenlivet, Gordon MacPhail.
Yeah, and that was the joke that I think Richard was making. He's like, we're starting out with some younger whiskey here, guys. 30-year-old.
Yeah. Both of those were excellent as well.
I absolutely loved the whiskeys. And we'll show some pictures of what exactly we had. But so good. Yeah. Unbelievably good.
Yeah. Honestly, it couldn't have gone better, to be honest with you. There's no, like, I don't think I could, like, I have zero criticism of how the night went. It was, like,
everything was planned perfectly. It was done the right way.
Exactly.
And we'll talk about how we actually have still a sample of this.
Yeah.
But all the courses paired perfectly with the wines, with the champagne, with the whiskeys. The dinner was great. So then we get to the 80-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And a really cool thing that they did is that they gave us, like, the sample bottle and was like, here, pour as much or as little as you want, and you can take some home with you. And we're just like, that's so awesome.
I was blown away.
So awesome.
And honestly, this was actually another kind of, like, feather in the cap of the whiskey world. Our boy Brandon was there from barrel to bottle. Mm-hmm. And there's 3 of them. And he was the one that drew, like,
he got
the straw to get to go.
The long straw,
Yeah, the long straw, I guess.
Right.
He got to go out of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
So he poured himself, like, that much.
Yeah,
and he
like
left
a third.
And he left
for the other 2 guys.
2/3 for the other 2 guys. Like, I thought that was, like, such a cool thing. Like, just little things like that throughout the night. It's like, wow, this is the community that we're a part of. It was honestly, it was a really cool event, man.
Yeah, it was so well done. So we're like, oh great, we can save some and, like, do a freaking podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
And talk about it and try it again on a palate that isn't consumed with a 6-course meal and 3 scotches and 2 bottles of wine and then some champagne.
Shockingly though, somehow it held up.
It was fine.
It was great.
It didn't, like, it was like, oh no, the palate's ruined. It wasn't really ruined at all.
I didn't feel, there's nights where you drink a couple cask strength whiskeys, you're like, okay, pretty much anything I try after this is gonna, like, be bland and I'm not gonna taste it.
Yeah.
But this stood up to everything. And I was shocked.
And we'll talk about this cool little egg corn that they gave us as well. So this represents 80 years is oak in, like, the, what do you call that? It's like the marriage anniversary tradition, right? You have diamond, you have whatever.
Gold, silver.
Sure.
Platinum.
So 80, if you ever get married for 80 years, is oak.
Yeah.
So they fashioned these cool little acorns out of the staves of the cask that they pulled the whiskey from. I thought that was really, really cool. So we got a nice touch. Memento, and they gave us a really cool box that fit the glass, the sample.
Are we showing that up here, or?
We'll show it on the screen right now of exactly what that is. Really nice presentation with the box and everything. So we took that. That was at the very end. They gave us that to put everything in. Yeah. That we could take home.
Got this little 80 Glencairn.
Yeah, the Glencairn 80. I don't know if you guys can see that. I don't know if they can. Yeah, there you go, kind of.
Well, they'll see it in the images.
With the 80 up there.
Cool little box.
So, yeah, we poured ourselves a little bit of the whiskey, and I thought it was absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Nosing this thing.
Yeah, it was crazy. I must have nosed it for almost, I feel like it was almost an hour.
We spent 6.5 hours at this restaurant. We got there at 6:30 and we closed it down at 2, right? We were there for a very, very long time.
Long time. Yeah, it was a long night. And we're technically at 5:30 because, I don't know, you slept a little better than I did, but I was still stuck in Toronto time, so I'm waking up.
At that point we were still in Toronto time.
Yeah.
So it was really 2:30 was 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. for us. So it was a late night, but 100% well worth it.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know what you expected with this whiskey. I didn't really know what to expect. I figured it would have some oak influence in it, but that was really it. I mean, the cool thing about this whiskey is it was laid down in 1940. At that time, Glenlivet peated their malt. Yeah. So peated malt here. Something that they don't do now.
Which I wonder if that's what saved this whiskey from being over oaked. Is that it was a little peated.
Interesting.
Because you kind of lose that oakiness in like a peated whiskey, I find.
Sure.
Like you'll get it a little bit more in just like a sherry cask or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I don't find I pick it up as much when there's, although you don't really get peat on the nose here.
No, you don't. Matured in a sherry butt.
You do get the sherry.
Yeah.
It's a lot, honestly, like I wish we could share, because I don't think people will believe how fresh the sherry actually
That was
is.
one thing that shocked me, was how fresh and vibrant the whiskey was, and how the oak wasn't over oaked, in my opinion.
Which makes me excited to find out what other expressions there are laid away in other, I mean, maybe we'll never get to try them, but probably. The likelihood of ever trying this was like 1 in a million, but maybe less. The reason why he explained that he thinks, so one of the owners of Gordon MacPhail Aroma was there doing the tasting with us, which was absolutely awesome. Richard, really cool
Richard
guy.
was a great guy.
And he explained that the cask that they ended up aging this whiskey in was a sherry transport cask. So back when they were using old sherry, they would transport in these thicker oak casks, transport the sherry in thicker oak casks. So like old sherry that was going to go get bottled somewhere, they pour it into these transport casks, and these transport casks would have several like years of like transporting before they were ever filled with a whiskey.
Yep.
So they're transporting
Back and forth,
really
back and
really
forth.
quality sherry
Yeah.
back and forth to like bottling, and then from the bodegas containing this old sherry that was, because back in the day they were only bottling old sherry because it wasn't, it was in demand, and but like they had a better supply of it. Anyway, long story short, this transport cask has a thicker stave. So each of the staves obviously are a little thicker,
Right.
Which is why he thinks it stood up like in
80
the
years.
like, we're talking, it's still 44.9% at cask strength.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. Cask strength at 44.9.
Right? I know of 30-year-olds that are that low. Like the Anok 1975 that Mike and Narby actually recently reviewed. I reviewed that a few years back, like 3 years ago, and that was like about 44% cask strength. So that's only 39 years old.
Yeah.
Right? So long-winded way of saying that the thicker oak staves is what he believes saved this from evaporating too much, as well as losing a lot of ABV at a time.
Right. So on the nose, this thing is incredibly complex. So many layers. The first thing that really kind of caught my eye with it is how much like tea-like qualities and notes I was getting out of this. I don't know if David's tea is something that they have worldwide.
Yeah.
If it is, this is what they look like. So David's tea has so many different varieties of tea.
Yeah.
And you walk into their store and smell some stuff, and you get some of that in here.
Yeah.
It's insane.
If David's tea is not a global thing, then think fancy hipster, like
tea. It's like
new age.
blended teas
Yeah.
meant to like create a profile. Very
Exactly.
fruity, very like aromatic.
So much like David's tea, I would name this the black. So the strawberry eucalyptus black tea. That's
Yeah.
what I would name this.
It's a very good descriptor. Because it is. It's like, and I'm getting like mint, and like there's a whole bunch of like herbal elements that come in with this as well. And of course you get like that aged sherry, that like old leather, the like dusty antique store kind of like vibe to it.
Yeah, this screams like old library.
Old library,
Right?
for sure. Yeah, absolutely it does. And
So,
just,
like,
there's so many layers. It's hard to describe it. There's so much stuff going on with it.
Old library, a little bit of like wood varnish, polish, something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Like something like almost like those like what's it called, like lemon pine sol, I guess it is. Is it lemon pine sol? That like you clean like
Yeah.
wood tables with? But like from a distance, not not potent by any means.
Right.
Like, not stinging your nostrils or anything like that. It's just that kind of like distant, like.
Cue the Family Guy lemon pledge clip here.
We need more lemon pledge.
Lemon pledge. But yeah, I what the fresh part is that like where those strawberries come in for me.
It's incredibly vibrant. Like you wouldn't think on 80 years you'd get this much vibrancy from the cask, but it's insane.
There's something else fruity in there that I wasn't able to like peg.
There's lots of berry fruit, but it's hard to. Yeah, you're right. It's hard to exactly. There's notes in here that I've never experienced before in a whiskey. You know, like, what's it taste like? Like, what's something could you name another whiskey that this is like? I don't think you could.
No.
No,
Not
it's like,
whiskey.
It's like nothing you've had before.
There is like a little bit of like a distant like rum cake kind of note.
Something like pastry in there.
Yeah, like something even like Christmas fruitcake kind of note.
Yeah, maybe like a little like frosting.
But not like an up close or like you just took a bite out of. Very distant.
Everything in here is subtle.
Yeah.
It seems like there's nothing really overwhelming.
No heat whatsoever.
0%.
It almost smells like you're. You know when you leave a really well-aged whiskey glass unwashed on your sink?
Like the next morning.
The next morning?
Yeah.
It almost has that kind of smell to it.
Yeah.
You know? Like.
It's almost got like some barrel char influence as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that's. I think that's maybe where the oak comes in. Like. She is 80 years old, right? So.
Yeah.
We haven't taken a sip yet.
I mean, you don't need to take a sip of this. You can just smell this
Knows it
forever.
forever.
Yeah, he knows it forever.
Absolutely. All right, so should we taste this bad boy or what?
You go first.
I go first.
It was like when we were at the dinner and no one was like, okay, who's gonna sip it first?
Yeah,
who's gonna go first? I think I was one of the first ones because I couldn't take it anymore. I just could not take it. I couldn't take people talking about notes and shit. I'm like, I just gotta drink this thing.
I think I was one of the last that day, but I'll be the first this thing.
I think I took a sip and I don't think I swallowed for like 2.5 minutes. It seemed like forever. I just kept it in and just tried to like analyze exactly what I was getting. But so much going on with this whiskey. Like it's crazy to think about something this old and what you get from it.
I just don't think people will believe how good this actually is. Like like that moment just now, I was like, yeah, I remember this. Like, wow. That was a wow experience then and just a wow experience right now. All those notes like we talked about on the nose, like that strawberry eucalyptus black tea, it's there, but it's not so eucalyptus on the palate. It's more strawberry black tea. And then there's like a nice, like, I want to call it like a tobacco-y kind of note on the finish. But like a good tobacco, like a really good tobacco. Almost like the tobacco note that you would get from like a good espresso or something like that.
Yeah, the tobacco note that comes to mind for me is like pipe tobacco.
Yeah.
It's like the leaf, unburnt leaf pipe, like kind of leafy pipe tobacco.
Yeah.
The finish on this is hugely impactful. It's very, very bold.
I'm still tasting it.
You want to suck your cheeks off because the finish lasts for so long, right? You just like, and you keep trying to squeeze everything out.
Yeah, and like you would expect it to be drying.
It's
right?
not.
It's not at all.
It's not drying.
Which is crazy to me.
It's,
like that makes
how it
no
keeps
sense.
its vibrancy throughout the palate and the finish. I think speaks to how good this is.
I don't get it. Like I mean, we're not talking price yet, but for the price, at least you know if you bought this bottle to drink and you have that kind of money to throw around, then you're gonna experience something you will never experience in any other whiskey.
Sure. You're not buying like a dusty, dry, over oat whiskey.
Yeah, like
no.
It's not fair to say, is this the best whiskey you ever had? I don't know. I need a lot of time with a whiskey to know that. You know what I mean? And like giving something like this a mark is really hard as well. We'll try maybe, but it's really hard, right? But Are you ever gonna taste anything like this again? I don't think so.
This is insanely good.
Yeah, it's really good,
it's like
dude.
trying it for another time, like tonight. It just makes you appreciate, I think, even more.
Absolutely. If anything, way more, because that night we were revved up. We were expecting good things. We were, like the mood was great. The atmosphere was great. Everything was great. But now you take this, like, to the basement.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. No other distractions around. Right. Just you and the whiskey.
And all the same things. Like I remember, like, having to close my eyes in that moment when we were drinking it at the restaurant that night. And just now, I felt that same sensation. Like, I gotta close my eyes. Like, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, I want to, like, I don't know how to ingrain this. Thank God this is on video. This is why I kind of started Whiskey in the Six, because there were so many moments that I was like, man, I don't want to forget this. How do I capture this? And, like, you don't have your friends around, like, especially in the beginning, when you're just getting into whiskey, you don't have your friends to share it with all the time. Probably most of the time, right? And that's why I started Whiskey in the Six, because I would be like, the first thing I would do is pick up my phone, text one of my friends that I know likes whiskey, and my God, you got to try that. Like, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, I should, like, try to record this experience. Thank God we were able to take back half an ounce and do an actual proper review on this, because
I love that they thought that through. That was one of the highlights to me. It's just like, oh, you
I was
guys
shocked.
thought of that? That's so cool that we can do that.
Honestly, I did
Really,
not
really
expect
cool.
it, because, like, I thought that they were less, what's the word? I guess, like, you go to some whiskey tastings, and I don't want to call the word stingy. It's not stingy, but, like, they're way more controlling about the situation with, we're talking like a $100 bottle or a $200 bottle or maybe a $500 bottle, right? This bottle is the MSRP on this bottle Canadian is $140,000. It's already sold for, well, I don't know.
We'll get into that when we talk about the secondary market. But a cool thing, I guess, what they did when they tried to price this, they're like, let's do 1,000 pounds per year.
Yeah.
So, like, we're going to sell this thing for 80,000 pounds, and it's going to be 80,000 pounds wherever it's sold at retail, whatever market you're in. And I thought that was kind of cool.
I think that was cool.
And we'll talk about secondary, because it goes for obviously way more in secondary, but we'll get to that. One really cool conversation I think we had that night at our table is we kind of went around and was like, what's your best whiskey experience? And not necessarily like what's your favorite whiskey you've ever tried, but like what's the experience you've had before that really like reminds you. And a lot of people like went back to just tasting a whiskey that's not like the craziest whiskey or the rarest whiskey or the oldest whiskey. It was like who you're with and like those experiences, and that's what everyone talks about and how like they love whiskey because it's the sharing, right?
Exactly.
So everyone kind of told a story about that, and I thought that was really cool. I did name drop the Brewer 38, but but really like for me it was like drinking at a cottage with my buddies or whatever. Like those are the times that like you remember the most. Obviously, this tasting we'll never forget that.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the funny thing about this hobby is that it can be a super lonely hobby if like you don't have a lot of people that you can share the experience with, and it's not the same. It's like I don't know. I'm trying to think of like the exact comparison, and there really isn't one. Like it's hard.
That's why like the online community is so good, the YouTube community is so good. It's like you can go to that live show and you can experience a tasting with someone.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there's nothing like doing it in person with people that are just as passionate as you are.
Yeah.
I think that's really like a special thing that you find with little, niche things, if it's whiskey or whatever else. People that are passionate like you are, it's exciting and it's fun.
Absolutely. The longer this stays like open or like poured, the sweeter it gets on the nose.
I was gonna say I was getting some sweetness, some like licorice aspect to it.
Yeah.
It's it's crazy and how well balanced everything is too.
Something like I want to call it like an oak syrup. I know there's like a maple syrup, but there's like an oak syrup.
Interesting. I mean, if you had a full bottle of this and you could try it multiple times on multiple days, you would have a laundry list of tasting notes.
Yeah,
they would go a mile long.
It would change every single time you go back to that bottle.
Right? Yeah.
It would have to, because I mean, single casks in general open up ridiculous amounts. Now we're talking a single cask that was in the barrel for 80 years. Like, that's insane. This barrel saw World War II.
Yeah. Insane.
Right? Like,
yeah, it was.
where wars fought,
It
not
was
far from where this was laying.
Yeah. Right?
What was Scotland's involvement in World War II?
I think they were just, I don't know,
Just
they're
doing
English ally, right?
Yeah, I
Like,
would assume so.
British ally. This is insane. It's so good. And that's like something too that like you were so happy about, or I was. It was like, oh my god, this is like an amazing whiskey.
Yeah, like it would have really sucked if we went there and like choking it down and it's like, yeah, it's really good. How bad would that have been? Like,
Yeah.
What do you do in that situation? You're talking like, this is okay. Can we talk price a little bit here?
Let's talk price in a second. I just wanted to add one more thing about when Richard was talking about this cask. And they tried it at 70 years, and they were like, nah, not good enough yet. We gotta let this thing go another decade. That, like, how hilarious is that when you pull a cask at 70 and you're like, it's not ready?
I think I made a joke to someone that night. I'm like, imagine you're like an 80-year-old groundskeeper at the time, and you're like waiting for this
That cask to come out. You're like, yeah.
You started there when you were 10 years old, and it was laid the same year. And it's finally, like, 70 years old, and they're like, okay, maybe it's ready now. And
Yeah, they're gonna totally do it for 70.
you got these two young bucks running the show now. They're like, nah, we're gonna wait another 10
we need a
years.
decade more on this cask.
Poor Walter.
Hilarious, right? But it's interesting because, like, obviously it can't dip below 40%, and they're obviously like looking at this every single year, or maybe
sure.
multiple times a year, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Because that would be the worst thing ever. When it goes to 39.9 and you're like, what do we do now?
I feel like almost any other distillery this would have been underproof stuff.
Yeah.
This would have been underproof stuff that was poured into a blend that, like, like an
or some
incredible
special
blend.
edition or something
Yeah.
that like we put it in. Yeah.
Right? You
Yeah.
use this one cask that's now 35% or 36% in, a special release 30-year-old and charge
Right.
$10,000 a bottle.
Yeah. You want to talk price?
Yeah. So
like we said, £1,000 per year is retail.
right.
Yeah.
So I know of a store in Alberta that's selling it for $140,000
Canadian dollars.
Canadian dollars.
Yeah.
So 140, but we do know of a charity auction, and Richard spoke to it that night, that it went for 190,000 American.
193,000 US dollars was what it sold for. At Hong Kong auction.
Okay.
Whiskey auction, one sold for 140,000 pounds.
140,000, which is
So that's about 185,000 US.
yeah. I think the translation was like, or for Canadian dollars, it was like $237,000.
Yeah. So this half ounce, which we're sipping on right now, is what, $4,500, $4,000.
Based on those numbers, is it a 700 milliliter bottle?
Yeah.
700 milliliters?
Yeah, I think so.
So if it's a 700 milliliter bottle, it's probably what, like 24 ounces?
Do some quick math.
Just do a quick little run of the numbers here. Let's go based on the 230,000 number, divided by 24. So my previous calculation was wrong. Well, no, it could have been right. It was like 8,000 US
an ounce.
an ounce. This works out to $9,500 an ounce Canadian.
Right. Yeah. So.
So almost $10,000 an ounce.
Yeah. Right. So so our half ounce that we drank tonight is almost $5,000 worth of whiskey.
Yeah, we just
Right?
drank $5,000 worth of whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it ain't no thing.
Yeah, like
mean-
we just blinked. That happened.
Yeah. So do you want to try to score this whiskey?
My God, I don't even know where to begin. Like, at some point you have to factor in authenticity and rare experience to it too, right?
Uh-huh.
I would think.
Yeah.
You done yours?
No. Almost.
I don't know. I'm in the mid 90s. I'm in like, I think this is as good as anything I've ever tried, right? And what I mean by that is as good as the best things I've ever tried.
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking like, that like really special Springbank that Mike and Narby sent to us. That Gordon MacPhail Mortlock 31-year-old that I bought back in the day.
Yeah.
The Brewer 38-year-old that we tried together. The Brewer 35-year-old that we tried together.
The Brewer 30-year-old, which we tried together.
The Brewer 30-year-old that we tried. That
Kirizawa is up there for me.
Unbelievable as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had some ridiculous grandeurs and some ridiculous family casks as well. This is there. This is with all of those. It's a different experience. It's something that I absolutely loved. I think I have to give this a 95. And I mean, I know that's super generous, but it probably would be higher if we had a full bottle and we can like go back to it regularly. Like I feel like it's almost not fair to mark this,
For me, I agree with everything that you just said, and I would echo those thoughts exactly. The highest score I've ever given on my channel has been 95, and that was for the Brewer 38-year-old. I think that Kirizawa we tried is right up there, if not maybe like a half tick more than that. So for me, I'm right with you with 95. I think this ties my highest score ever. And I think it's because of the complexity, because of the viscosity, the vibrancy, like how this sits on your palate and how it finishes is insane. It's like, it's crazy. And I'm not even including the experience that we had with this in the whiskey. This is just the whiskey itself.
Yeah.
If we try this blind, that's what I would say about it. You factor in, this flight, dinner, tasting, the company that we shared it with. I mean, it's 100 out of 100. There's nothing. Are we gonna get a better whiskey experience in our life?
I don't think we can. Like, how do you top that?
I don't think so. Unless they do it for the 100th, and then somehow they're like, 2 people got really sick. Can you guys like fill in last second?
Imagine.
Right? And yeah, I mean, I don't see a better experience coming. I mean, it was a one-of-a-kind thing, and we had the time of our lives there.
Yeah, I mean, a whiskey experience that could not be traded. Like, it was incredible. I mean, I almost think it's like blasphemy marking something like this. Like, you almost just got to kind of just respect it, and it is what it is. Like, that was a half ounce, but it took us a long time to drink.
It's so hard not to drink it fast, right? Though. I just want to down the whole thing.
Of course, because it's easy to drink and it's delicious. And there's like,
it's so good.
I almost think, like we said, our scores are 95 each, but with room to improve. Like, and we'll never get that chance.
Let's talk value on this. Is this? We usually drink what we consider a value whiskey. Obviously, something that retails for £80,000 can never be value. But I mean, we don't drink enough stuff to know if this is value. This could be a good value purchase.
So, put it this way: it's not a guy like you or I. Okay, I'll speak for myself. It's not a guy like me that's buying this bottle and drinking it.
Right.
I can't. There's no way I can. I'm not mortgaging my house just to buy a bottle. No. And then, the guys that are buying this bottle, it's a drop in the bucket, just like a $200 bottle would be for us.
If you can get it at retail, it's a good investment because you're going to make, more than half your money back instantly.
Yeah.
But let's just throw it out there, how like these old Macallans go for at auction, stuff like that. Would you say that something like this, even at secondary market price, at around $200,000 compares to something that's a Macallan that's $1 million?
So those Macallans, they're usually bottled at cask strength, the older ones that are single casks and stuff like that. I've never tried one. I've never even tried a single cask Macallan, so I can't speak to those. Why I will say this is worth the price tag is whoever's buying this, if they decide to drink it, the money's not hurting them, right? It's like I said, it's a once in a lifetime whiskey experience, and if you can afford $200,000 and it doesn't hurt you financially, then and you're willing to open that bottle, then you're gonna enjoy it. You're gonna get a whiskey that you'll never get to experience in your life. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, for a whiskey that's the oldest Scotch ever bottled, ever to this point in time. It doesn't seem like it's out of the realm of numbers as far as what you're seeing other bottles go for in secondary market auctions.
No, and this will, like, if you decide to buy two, if you're lucky enough to get two of them, like do the Rob, then the second one that you buy is going to be worth probably like $1 million in what, 5-10 years. You know what I mean? So I think it's worth buying personally. Obviously, I don't think a $200 bottle is worth buying if it's gonna hurt you. If it's gonna financially get in the way of you feeding your children and paying your bills, then you shouldn't be buying a $200 bottle. Just like obviously a $200,000 bottle, you shouldn't be buying if it's gonna financially hurt you, and it's not the person that's gonna be financially hurt by it that will buy this. You know what I mean? So I think it's worth every penny, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that the people that do buy it, and if they do decide to open it, they're not going to be disappointed with the liquid inside.
No, exactly, and that's the key, right? A lot of people that are buying this, it's a museum piece. It's going to go on there. I know the belief is that a lot of people are buying this to drink because they're so curious to see like what an 80-year-old whiskey will taste like. But I have a hard time believing that. I have a hard time believing that like more than 30% of these bottles will be open. You know what I mean? I don't see it happening. So it's too easy to collect. Right?
And the bottle, show the bottle back there, and the kind of whiskey cage that came in that was designed by an architect, really cool. They kind of went more of like a simplistic style with it, which I thought was really kind of cool. It wasn't like a big, exorbitant decanter. It was kind of like more kind of simple. I guess you can look up the design process and what was going through the architect's head when they did that, but I thought it was really cool. The
giant cologne bottle.
Essentially that's what it is, right?
It's really, honestly, I think it's a beautiful bottle.
It was a beautiful bottle and very heavy.
The decanter itself will probably be worth a good portion of money if the guy that buys it decides to drink it. I think that decanter will be worth a lot of money. Plus, it'll be a cool infinity bottle.
Absolutely.
Right? Like if you're a suit and you have that in your office after it's finished, you just keep refilling it with high quality stuff. Why not?
Cotton candy on the empty glass.
On the empty glass.
My goodness, man. Just crazy. Insane.
Lots of oak syrup.
Absolutely insane. Oak syrup, the new thing that you just coined.
Oak syrup. On the empty glass.
So I mean, our minds are blown.
Thanks, James.
James and Richard and everyone else had a hand in putting that on, and every single person that we shared the experience with at that restaurant. Thank you for making it awesome.
Absolutely.
Where do we go from here? It's all downhill, right? We're done.
Yes.
We're done.
Yeah, that's a wrap. We got to start our own whiskey distillery now.
Shit, man. Well, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Right?
Just really appreciative. I mean, who would have known when we started our channels and started our journey that we would have been able to try something like this? I personally can't afford to buy a $10,000 bottle, let alone a $10,000 ounce of whiskey. You know what I mean? So, pretty cool.
Well, thank you so much again, and thanks so much for watching. I don't know, leave us a comment, I guess.
We got to get some Whiskey Rant merch.
Oh, you keep saying that, and you leave it on me, and I keep putting it off.
You're the guy. I'm the most I can't. It won't work if I have to do it. So.
If you want to get this podcast early, you want to support our channels, check out our Patreons. You can get this $1 a month will get you this podcast earlier than everyone else.
So
check it out. And yeah, we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.